America affordable again. It's going to be affordable again at a really record pace. And
President Trump returned to South Florida today. This time he appeared at a business conference in Miami this afternoon. Thank you for joining us on WPBF 25 News at 4. I'm Tiffany Kenny.
And I'm Shane Wright. A good Wednesday to you. WPBF 25 News anchor Todd McDermott joining us tonight live near the Kaseya Center and tells us about the president's appearance down there, Todd.
All right, Shane. Well, this appearance by the president is a brief one. It comes on the exact one-year anniversary of the night he was elected to the White House to retake the presidency. The quick appearance at the Kaseya Center today comes at a business forum called the American Business Forum. He was supposed to speak at around 1 o'clock. That came a little bit later. Here at the Kaseya Center, home of the Miami Heat on Biscayne Boulevard. It's a two-day event for entrepreneurs, financiers, big money people. The tickets cost $1,100 a piece, but it's not a political event. It's not a political rally of any kind. His appearance comes after a rough election night for Republicans. Democrats winning every notable race across the country. On the night that President Trump said the difference was Democrats won because his name was not on the ballot last night in any of those races. As expected, he talked about his economic vision and accomplishments in year one, including the sweeping tariffs levied on imports into the U.S. from around the world, which have poured billions of dollars into the U.S. Treasury. Of course, those taxes paid mostly by American companies and consumers. It's the same day the U.S. Supreme Court is actually hearing a challenge to the president's tariffs, with companies claiming that that is actually the purview of Congress, not the president, who had to declare a state of emergency to actually enact those tariffs. The president also pointed to the billions in promised investments by foreign trade partners and others into the U.S. economy.
we have the greatest economy right now. A lot of people don't see that. But if you look at what's happening with all the factories, AI, auto plants all over the country being built, that if you would have thought about that 2 or 3 years ago, it was the opposite. They were all leaving. Now they're all coming in.
Now, a night of sweeping election victories for the Democrats could perhaps bring President Trump to the negotiating table to end the government shutdown, which is now in a record 36th day, the longest in U.S. history. But that certainly is not guaranteed. Now, to those races last night, among them, former Navy chopper pilot Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey and former CIA intel officer Abigail Spanberger in Virginia, two moderate Democrats and former members of Congress winning decisive victories for governor in their respective purple states. On the other side of the Democratic spectrum, there's left-leaning Democratic socialist Zohran Mamdani, a former state assemblyman who won more than 50% of the vote in New York to become the next mayor of that city. He's sure to be a star of the left wing of the party and an easy target for Republicans, branding Democrats as, quote, radicals. Finally, that landslide win for Proposition 50 in California, which will allow redrawing of congressional districts next year. Governor Gavin Newsom spearheaded that movement to push back against President Trump's prodding of Texas, Ohio, North Carolina, Missouri, and more to come to redraw their maps to pick up GOP seats in next year's midterms to try to hold on to their razor-thin majority in the House. California Republicans did file a federal lawsuit today to stop the redistricting movement. That electoral success, though, in California would seem to set up Gavin Newsom for a possible presidential run in 2028. That's still to come. Democrats believe they have the momentum at their backs now after last night's performance. But a reminder, the midterm elections are an entire year away. More from Miami coming up at 5 o'clock. Now let's go to Tiffany.
Todd, thank you.